Hi, everyone, and welcome to VAB's Spotlight on Streaming series. I'm Danielle DeLauro, Executive Vice President of the VAB. With half of Americans now cordless, VAB is putting a spotlight on streaming. We're releasing 2 new streaming insights pieces covering content, discovery, and churn, and we have a piece on ad fraud coming out next week. And if that's not enough, we have a newly launched Streaming Insights Hub, which houses over 30 pieces of original VAB reports, answering some of marketers' biggest questions on streaming. But today, we are really excited to be kicking off our 3-day series of roundtables, and I am chatting with some of the smartest women in the business. So let's take a minute to have everyone introduce themselves. They can give a brief overview of what they do. And then also, I'm curious as to what streaming show they're currently watching. So I'm going to go in alphabetical order by first name, of course. So Amy, why don't we start with you?
Hi, everybody. Excited to be here today with these fabulous ladies. So I'm Amy Leifer. I lead DirecTV advertising as the Chief Advertising Sales Officer. And we represent inventory across DirecTV and DirecTV Stream. And that means all things addressable, linear, streaming, programmatic. And then to answer your question, Danielle, what am I streaming? So nobody ruin it for me. I'm only 2 episodes into Succession, which is one of my favorites. And so I got that big one left. But I have to say my favorite latest show is Shrinking. So if you haven't seen that, highly encourage it. Really, really good.
Awesome. Danny?
Hi, everybody. Danielle, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with all these amazing ladies. I'm Danny Benowitz. I am the president of Magna, which is IPG Media Brands' centralized go-to-market and intelligence arm. What am I watching? Well, last night I love documentaries. So last night I actually watched the Malaysian Airlines documentary on Netflix. It was crazy. Conspiracy theories are abound. Then I just finished, I think last week, which I loved, The Last of Us, which was so incredible. Can't wait even for the next season to start.
Both things that I want to watch, both things I have on my list. Krista?
Hi, everyone. So excited to be here. Thanks for having me. Krista Panoff. I'm the SVP of Global Enterprise Development for Innovid. I lead our sell-side team, but the Innovid platform, we really work across buy and sell, combining ad delivery, personalization, and measurement for the world's largest brands and publishers. And what am I streaming? So I have 2 teenage daughters. So we just finished the latest episodes of Outer Banks. So it's a lot of Outer Banks in my household. And for me personally, though, I am also behind. I am catching up on Only Murders in the Building, which I'm loving. It's fantastic.
My daughter is obsessed with Outer Banks. She thinks it's the best thing in the world. So I totally get it. I'm there with you. Kristen?
Hi there. I'm Kristen Williams. I lead strategic partnerships at Magnite. My organization is focused on all of our technology partners that fall outside of buyers and sellers. So things like data, identity, and measurement, focusing on that omni-channel, but with a real focus on streaming. Amy, we have this in common. I just started Succession. So I won't ruin it for you. We can chat about that.
I think it's so interesting that, we can talk about this later, how, people jump into a series later. Because I started watching Succession when it first started. And I think it's interesting now how, you can jump into a series so many years later and then just get right up into it later and become fans. And I think that's what's so great about streaming. So that kind of leads to the first question that I had, which is really defining what streaming is. We at the VAB released a report identifying 15 streaming trends and tipping points. And one of the tipping points found that half of adults now say TV is anything, quote unquote, that you can watch on your TV set. And so, my question to you, Danny, is that what you think TV is from a video investment perspective? Do you look at it as just anything that comes on the TV glass? And then how do you think about that when you're actually looking at it and you're investing for your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we definitely we don't use the word television anymore. We use the word video. we've been using the word video for quite some time now, because obviously it's about reaching people where they are and getting the most eyeballs you can. So for us, formerly known as television, is definitely anything you're watching on the big screen. And I think we can all agree there's certainly no lack of great premium content that you can watch on a big screen. Certainly some of the things we've all mentioned a few minutes ago, but I don't think it's just only limited to that as well. And you'll hear me say this a lot today. It's in the eye of the beholder. So I think you said you have a teenage daughter. My daughter, who is a college freshman, could watch social video on her television screen for hours at a time. She can watch TikTok videos. So we actually look at sight, sound, motion, and video across pretty much all genres as the new definition of television. Really just reaching audiences at scale where they are.
Amy, what do you think about that? What do you think about the word television? Do you think it's still relevant? Do you think that do you think television and video are the same and interchangeable?
So I definitely think that the definition of TV has changed and has more modernized, as Danny describes, to be video. But interestingly, DirecTV did some research, and it was interesting what came back. It was, regardless of how it was delivered, similar to what Danny's saying, it's all about that premium professional content, right? And I thought what was really interesting is about half the people in our study defined it as networks like NBC, ESPN, HGTV, and then the other half defined it as like Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max. So it's just interesting to see that consumers define TV as premium content, and really just content that they can access however, whenever that they want to.
I think that's exactly it. I think for the consumer, TV is TV, regardless of the screen and regardless of the subscription type. I think from what I see as an industry, we start to use terms that are more narrow when we start to get into things like campaign planning, audience addressability, and then utilizing services from technology partners. I think it's not a given that you can buy linear TV and mobile inventory from a platform, or it's not a given that you can use an audience segment that will work across data-driven linear and desktop. And so although I think we've had great progress when it comes to cross-platform technology, there's still gaps. So I find us leaning on terms like advanced TV or streaming TV because we've overcome a lot of those challenges when it comes to campaign execution. And I think as technology evolves, like our use of the word TV will also change again.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that original definition, of TV being defined as like the large glass is really overly limiting. And that under that definition, it would say my teenage daughters never watch TV, which they watch a lot of TV. They watch it all on their phones. I think what's interesting is this idea of, like, you say video, it's like the long form, short form. Like my younger daughter will watch TikTok on the TV. So is that TV? It's these short form clips. Like that's a question of this more content, long form versus short form. How are we defining TV? But the device doesn't matter at all. It's all premium content video. I think of as TV.
And then, so Danny, I'm going to bring that then back to you. So when you're thinking about this from an investment perspective, are all those dollars just put together, all your video dollars, whether they're premium video or what? I mean, I think what Amy's saying, whether you consider them to be premium professionally produced content, I guess is how you could say it, or social video or TikTok, or all those dollars in one bucket and being distributed, or do you have separate buckets for those?
I think the answer is yes to both. I think it depends. It varies by client, it varies by segment, it varies by campaign. There are, we have a mix of everything. If you're looking at data that drives results, you can put the dollars together and figure out where the best way to actually achieve those results are. And oftentimes it comes out of one pool. Other times you use different executions or different genres of video to do different things. So it's not a one size fits all. It really is it really is all over the place. But I definitely think the days of, or at least here, the days of I control this budget, you control this budget are over. It's much more holistically planned, and it's much more looked at in totality than segmented.
And Amy, is that what you're finding with your clients also, that overall that your clients are coming to you with a holistic budget, and you feel like you're there? Is that how you're working with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think that quickly leads us into our convergence conversation, right? And so, for us, that's how we plan and execute addressability today, right? It's a video budget that's executed across multiple platforms. And I think that's really where, we are really trying to help brands, marketers, Danny, really cut through that waste, right? And drive efficiency across platforms. And so we're using data to help them find that targeted audience. And then we're using that to place it within premium content, regardless of the platform. And so when we look at this, we're looking at TV holistically, right? And so that's really where I think it becomes, it's not about linear or digital. It's about linear and digital, which is just, video premium produced content.
Because everything is digital now.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, and I think when we think about, we're talking a lot about content and how viewers are watching, but I think what's important also to us and obviously to marketers is the ad environment, and thinking about what's happening in the advertising environment. And also the benefit to marketers for streaming is the fact that there's this increased opportunity for customization and personalization. So Krista, my question to you is, how is Converge TV allowing for more customized ad experiences?
Yeah, so I think, with Converge TV, the ability to customize and personalize, first, one, I'll say, there's a benefit to the consumer. I mean, for me as a viewer, it's such a more enjoyable viewing experience when I see an ad that's speaking to me directly. But for the marketer, it really allows them to go beyond that sort of brand awareness and drive true lower funnel KPIs. So what we see is the ability for brands to use tactics like, cross-device sequential messaging to kind of tell a story in the order they want to tell to the audience that they've targeted, driving to a specific outcome. We have examples of folks using things like survey units. I think we worked with a skincare brand that leveraged the ability to have this interactive engagement with a consumer where you could, select the type of skincare concern you had. And then that would drive to an ad for me for that particular product and a QR code that drives me straight to a purchase. I think it's allowing this kind of environment that consumers have come to expect in this sort of Amazon world of everything being personalized at my fingertips, instantaneous. My TV experience can now be that way, and advertisers can take advantage of that direct one-to-one consumer engagement in a way bigger way than we've ever been able to before.
So speaking about one-to-one, consumer engagement, Amy, how does addressability fit into this whole Converge TV world? I mean, you touched on it a little bit before. Do you want to add on to how you're working with your clients as far as addressability?
Sure. So, for us, addressable is really it using deterministic data to target on the one-to-one level and use technology, dynamic ad insertion to serve that ad, right? And so this has really been DirecTV's superpower for the last 10 years, but it's been really amazing to see the uptick and how clients are leaning in to leverage addressable technology to drive performance. And so we really look at, addressability as a way to bring that linear and streaming inventory together into that one campaign, which really allows us to manage reach, manage frequency. And over again, it's proven that. It proves out that, we can cut the waste and deliver measurable results really across every vertical and category. And so, obviously we believe that there's no better sort of approach in purchasing video. And we know that also that our customers are really looking at it the same way. We know that, advertisers are really thrilled by the results of what addressable can deliver. And let's be honest, like that's what it's all about. It at this moment in time, it's all about performance and proving out that performance. And I think that's what addressability does, over and over again.
Kristen, can you share any like real world examples that you've seen regarding addressability and the value that it brings to advertisers from your perspective?
Absolutely. And I think a lot of the things that Amy mentioned really resonate for us as well. I think, addressability at its core is ensuring that your intended audience is reached to increase your budget efficiency and also your performance. We continue to see growth across the board of our clients utilizing both first and third party data, but especially we're seeing growth on the first party data side. And I think it's fair to say it's because marketers are seeing a lot of performance success when using first party data. But in regards to a tangible example, I think an addressable strategy that we think is particularly impacting the shift of linear to streaming dollars is the use of ACR data, both from a targeting perspective, but also a measurement perspective. I think ACR data really unlocks the ability to have an addressable strategy around viewership, both on content viewership, but also exposure of advertisements. So we're seeing ACR data used to manage frequency between linear and CTV. We're seeing it used for conquesting. And we're also seeing it as a way for sequential messaging, which is really an amazing opportunity for brands to tell stories.
And I think that there is so much to get excited about in streaming and in a converged world in general, and there's so much innovation. So I'm just going to kind of throw this out there, as an open question, which is, what is the one either innovation or product or ad opportunity that you're most excited about? If there was one thing that someone stopped you in the street and said, this is the one thing that I think that in the next few years that is going to be either a big thing or just something that you would put a bet on, what would that be? Anyone want to take it? Anyone daring enough to grab that one?
Well,
I think the new ways we can start using Shopper in terms of interactivity, being able to engage immediately with something. We're already doing it, obviously, but I think the future is really, really bright and innovative in the things we can do from a shopper space. The other thing I would say that excites me, but I'm trying to figure out how to do it, is in the equity space. So we talk about addressability, and we know from just some studies we've done at Magna that when people see ads that feature people who look like themselves, they're more engaged in terms of how they're going to react, their brand recognition, their loyalty. So I think using addressability to reach audiences that are smaller and harder to reach is something that we're just unlocking and can continue to reach out and try to make that work in our favor and for our clients.
Yeah, I was going to say that, what I think is, having a front seat to all the changes that's happening in the marketplace. I think what's become really interesting is the innovation that we're seeing alongside of that, with interactive units, shoppable QR codes, and more engaging ad formats. I think something that we launched a few years ago was the pause ad. And to be honest with you, we launched it a few years ago, but just in the last year is when we've really seen advertisers really lean into this non-intrusive dynamic ad unit, right? And because it's really a way to reach a targeted audience in a moment in a different way, right? And so I just think that's what's exciting right now, is seeing this innovation and the different ways that we can get to that targeted audience that we're looking for in really, unique and non-intrusive ways.
I'll double down on that in terms of like these innovative, non-intrusive new formats. I think, the choice-based formats that are available today that kind of put the consumer and the viewer in the driver's seat. I can decide what ad experience do I want to have for that program. Do I want to see a longer ad up front and then watch my program uninterrupted? Or do I want to go with the traditional format? I love that as a consumer and a viewer, having that option. And I feel like that also brings brand affinity to me when I'm given that option to have that choice. And absolute double down on the shopper. I think QR codes pre-pandemic were kind of not really a thing. The pandemic made them totally normalize them. That's how we pull up our menus. It's how we transact in so many ways in our life now that it's normalized it. And I think it's increased the popularity of the QR codes in shopper units. So
yeah, I mean,
lots of
Coinbase like crashed the internet during the Super Bowl, right?
Yeah,
the QR
totally.
code, I think, yeah.
I think we're really close on a lot of technology advances that are going to help with consumer experience. I think there's the piece of ensuring that an ad is relevant and engaging for a user. We're hearing less and less of the challenges of, oh, I saw the same ad back to back over and over and over again, but you still hear about them sometimes, or maybe that a pod isn't constructed in a way that really creates a good user experience. I feel like we're right on the cusp of starting to solve some of those technology challenges. And when the user has a great experience, I think it means that they're having a great experience with brands as well, which is all what we're working towards.
And I think that's the key, right? Is that you want everything to work seamlessly for both for the consumer, which will ultimately lead to more people watching, which will ultimately lead to marketers being happier because their ad will be more relevant. And then this leads to measurement, the conversation that you have to have in every single panel. Otherwise, it's not really considered a panel. So we're going to talk about and shift to measurement. So Kristen, my question to you really is, can you talk a little bit about, tools or best practices that you're doing or seeing in order to make sure that marketers are really executing in the best way possible from a measurement perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, one of the biggest concerns, especially as we look at a tougher economy, is just ensuring that we're making the most of potential budgets or potentially shrinking budgets. And with increased pressure to deliver efficiencies and show return on investment for budgets, buyers really need to be strategic about their media spend and focus on performance. I think there's many ways to show strong performance, and that can be defined different depending on the brand and what their goals are. But really answering from the lens of making budgets work harder across streaming and linear, I say we're seeing a real focus on incrementality. And I think it's important for people to be looking at media plans holistically to determine the best way to direct spend. I think a real benefit of connected TV is the ability to leverage data and working towards ensuring that you're reaching incremental audiences and being able to use that data in a privacy and scalable way to plan and activate and to measure against campaigns. Again, really ensuring that you're reaching those incrementality goals. I think when it comes to best practices, I think something that isn't talked about quite enough is the importance of how you actually execute and deploy on these strategies, especially in CTV. I think, from our perspective, we're hearing more and more from buyers that signal fidelity is a challenge. So the identifiers coming through the bid stream. And when it comes to things like audience and measurement, those providers depend on those identifiers to be effective. So I think when it comes to kind of best practices is making sure that you're getting as close to the supply source as possible, because that's really critical to the success of the execution and optimization of those strategies.
I think that's a very, very important point. Krista, what do you have to add to that idea?
So I think, we focus on, I think the important thing is having really real time or as close to real time insight into the performance of your campaign, so you can make those in-flight optimizations that are going to make that dollar work harder for you. So what we see is, brands want to understand, like Kristen said, where is the incremental reach? Where are they reaching net new households, unduplicated reach across publishers, across between linear and streaming, and being able to provide that kind of real-time insight to the advertiser so that they can optimize in the campaign and get more efficiency out of every dollar. So I think it's both about the mix and it's about the outcome. If they're driving to a specific KPI, how are you surfacing those KPIs? Again, whether that's driving down to a purchase or an outcome or a store visit, how are you surfacing those in such a way that they're seeing what pub is working for them, what sort of channels working for them, what creatives working for them, and allowing them to make those shifts in flight and optimize those dollars.
Mm-hmm. So as we end our discussion, as we start to wrap up, let's talk about what we know is coming up, the upfront. Danny, you knew you weren't getting out of here without me asking you a question about the upfront. So I think as we wrap this up, and we've obviously been talking a lot about convergence. So really the question is, how do you plan in this converged TV world, and how are you executing in your investment strategy, and how are you looking at budgets as you enter this upfront?
I'm going to use a few words that we're going to throw around a lot this upfront. Some of them have been used before. Obviously, audience-centric continues to be super important. Hitting the right people at the right time where they're most receptive to obviously advertising. I would say holistic. We said it earlier. It's video, and it's all kinds of video. And then I think the last word I'm going to use a lot is flexibility. Flexibility being not just buying in the upfront, like being able to be always on and coming in and out when I need to. Being able to, as we just had the measurement conversation, to optimize, to move. Because it is, at the end of the day, all about performance, and we want to be able to maximize the dollars we get. Somebody just said it, the budgets are going to be constrained this year. There's all kinds of additional fees that we'd love to get rid of that come with buying inventory this way. So we need to be flexible. We need to be, again, thinking audience-centric, and we need to be thinking holistically.
Does anyone else have anything that they want to add regarding the upfront, or what they can see, what they expect to happen regarding measurement or currency platforms or streaming in general, as far as whether they think it's going to be up? I mean, obviously we think investment in streaming will be up, but do we think that it'll be significant, or will it continue to shift along the lines of the way the consumer behavior and viewing is shifting?
Yeah, I mean, I think it goes back, at least for us, it goes back to that convergence conversation, right? We need to be able to deliver those audiences across direct TV and stream. And that's how we work with our clients in that holistic approach across across that. But that's not just for addressability, right? That's for live sports packages. That's for the pause ads that we talked about, right? It's really, we understand what's happening with consumers and how they're shifting their viewing habits, and we need to go along for that ride. So regardless of what platform we're talking about, I think it's being able to deliver what Danny describes, right? You need to be able to deliver that targeted approach in a brand safe environment, in a flexible and partnership-like way, right? And so, I think that's just where we lean in as like trusted partners who's been doing this for a long time. In some ways, our role has morphed into consultant too, right? To help brands and through that change, right? And so that's just really how we view ourselves. But ultimately it is about that performance, right? Danny needs to show that the media that she is buying works. And that's where we've always leaned in heavily. So yes, it's measurement. Currencies are important, but let's be honest. DirecTV has been using non-panel based currencies for over 10 years. We've been measuring with ComScore for 10 years. And so those exist in the marketplace. I think it's really about what is performing for those brands as well. And how are you delivering that attribution on the back end against that targeted audience? And I think the publishers and the partners that can deliver that in a flexible and partnership-like way will have a, I don't want to say successful up front, but I think we'll all be working through the summer on this one.
I think that's a great place to end, and I think you're right. I think partnership should be the word of the upfront for this year, if I could say. So I want to thank everyone. Thank you. You all been spectacular. This has been a great conversation. Thank you everyone for watching. Remember, this is just day one of this roundtable, so you can always register for the next 2 days on our website. So feel free to do that. Day 2 tomorrow is going to be about what's next in streaming and the future of innovation. And day 3 is advertising opportunities and streaming. So definitely make sure to register and check those out. And thank you everyone for your time. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
See you.